Metacognition, learning to understand your thoughts. Do you overthink, struggle with anxiety, feel stuck in patterns, or feel hijacked by your mind sometimes? Are you hard on yourself? Or do you simply want to understand your own mind and own brain a bit better? If so, this video applies to you. And the fact that you're here now, curious about it, suggests something cool is already happening. Metacognition is the ability to think about thinking. It's that moment where you notice a thought arriving instead of instantly believing it and then drowning in it. That split second where you realize this is my mind talking, not reality. It's the difference between being anxious and noticing that you have anxiety, between believing every thought you have and realize that you're just the one hearing them. And we're not talking about fixing your thoughts here. We're talking about changing your relationship to them so you understand them and yourself better. It's a formidable power to have, and it's absolutely life changing. The problem most of us don't realize we're having. Most people think their thoughts are them, and not just metaphorically speaking, but literally. If a thought appears, it feels like the truth. It feels convincing, so it must be real. If it sounds urgent, it must be acted on immediately. If it repeats often enough, it starts to sound like you. So when your mind says you're failing, this will never change, everyone else has it figured out, you're falling behind, you should be doing more, you'll rest once this part is over, you just need to push a bit harder, other people handle this situation better than you do, you can deal with this later, you're fine, don't make a big deal of it, this is just how you are, or you don't need help. You don't just hear those thoughts, you inhabit them. They shape your posture, they shape your tone, your expectations. They decide what you attempt and what you quietly rule out before you even ever try. And the most powerful part is they don't need to be true to feel absolute. That's scary. They just need to be familiar. But your mind isn't lying to hurt you. It's repeating patterns it learnt when certainty felt safer than hope. But that doesn't make the thoughts fact. It makes them habits. And habits can be noticed and habits can be changed. You see, you don't hear those thoughts, you become them. And that's where so much confusion, so much suffering actually begins. Not in the actual event or not in the memory, because sometimes there isn't even a memory, and not in the emotion, but in the fusion, like the middle ground between you and whatever your mind happens to say. But here's where something powerful can enter: metacognition. There is a moment, sometimes tiny, sometimes brief, where instead of drowning in a thought, you actually notice it. You don't argue with it, you don't replace it, you don't try and fix it. You just think, oh, that's a thought. That moment is not weakness, it's not detachment or avoidance, it's awareness. And clinically, it has a name. This is metacognition, thinking about thinking. Metacognition is often described as the ability to think about thinking, but that sounds fairly abstract, so let's ground it a little bit. Metacognition is noticing a thought instead of automatically believing it and then becoming it. Recognizing my mind is just doing a thing right now, realizing this is an interpretation, not reality itself. It's the difference between being anxious and noticing anxiety is happening, between I'm a failure and I'm allowed to fail. And that might sound small, but it isn't. Understanding that gap, understanding that pause is one of the most important psychological skills a human being can develop. It is life changing. And why this matters more than positive thinking ever will. I am definitely an advocate for positive thinking. It really can have a big impact on your mental health and your life in general. But when it's done in the wrong way, it can almost become like gaslighting yourself. And I'm not talking about toxic positivity here. That's a whole other thing. A lot of people try to change their mental health by changing their thoughts. They fight them, they replace them, they argue with them, they drown them out with affirmations. But here's the problem: that solution is still trying to force yourself to believe every thought you have. And if you still believe every thought you have, then your mind still controls your life. And your mind's job is not to tell you the truth. Its job is the two P's: prediction and protection. You see, your brain evolved to scan for danger, not happiness. It exaggerates risk on purpose to make you more cautious. It replays past pain to ward you off doing that same thing again. It warns you of all the bad things that could happen, just in case. Metacognition doesn't silence the mind. It puts it back in its proper role. Play the player in its position. Advisor, not dictator, not boss. You see, most suffering comes from over identification. Let's say you have a thought: I'm not good enough. Without metacognition, that thought becomes a feeling, an identity, a memory, and then it becomes a future prediction. That's the loop. You feel it in your body, in your bones. You act from it and you act on it. You filter everything else then through that. With metacognition, though, something changes. Your mind starts to say things like, I'm noticing a familiar thought again. It's the same content, but with a completely different relationship. You're no longer inside the thought. You're just beside it, or you're with it. This is why therapy often feels like it's working quietly. Some people say, I don't feel better, but something's different. This is usually it. They still have negative thoughts, you still feel anxious, still spiral sometimes, but there's this space. They don't merge with every thought anymore. They recover faster, and you return to your baseline sooner. That's metacognition, and that's metacognition strengthening. It's not dramatic, it's not loud, but it's incredibly stabilizing. You've probably already experienced this, even if you didn't know it. Think of a moment when you noticed yourself overthinking. You caught the pattern mid spiral, and you might have thought something like, oh, here I go again, instead of collapsing into it without noticing you're collapsing into it. That wasn't you failing, that was awareness waking up. Metacognition isn't something you add, it's something you remember to use, and remember you can use. And why this doesn't make you detached or numb. Some people worry that if I stop identifying with my thoughts, won't I stop caring? No, you stop suffering unnecessarily. Not feeling. You don't stop feeling. Metacognition doesn't disconnect you from emotion. It stops emotion from hijacking your identity, hijacking your system. And in fact, allows you to be more aware, to understand yourself better, because you're not clouded by these thoughts anymore, because you understand them. You still feel sadness, but you don't become sadness. You still feel fear, but fear doesn't make the decisions for you. You still feel anxiety, but anxiety doesn't decide what you avoid. You still feel anger, but anger doesn't choose your words. You still feel shame, but shame doesn't get to define who you are. You still feel doubt, but the doubt doesn't get the final vote. You still feel loneliness, but that loneliness doesn't make you believe you're unlovable. You still feel urgency, but urgency doesn't mean there's something wrong. Metacognition isn't numbing, it's separating the signal from the noise, feeling from identity, emotion from command. That distinction is regulation. Here's where your nervous system comes into it. When you're fused with your thoughts, your nervous system treats them as reality. Your body reacts, your heart rate increases, your muscles tense. Stress hormones like cortisol will rise, your breathing shortens. Anxiety. But when you notice a thought instead of believing it, your body gets new information. This is not happening right now. And over time, your nervous system learns this new safety. That's why metacognition often shows up physically first. Your shoulders drop, your jaw unclenches, your breathing slows, your reactions soften. Your body finally starts to trust you again because you intercepted the thought. This is why people confuse progress with failure. A lot of people say to themselves, I'm still having these thoughts, so I must not be getting better. But the goal was never to have no thoughts. The goal is to no longer be ruled by them. And if you notice a thought at all, even after it's already started, that's progress. Just simply identifying the thought, naming it. Even if you catch it late, even if you still react to it sometimes. Awareness always comes before change. Always. Metacognition changes your identity. At some point, something shifts from this is who I am to this is just something that happens me. You stop seeing yourself as broken or weak and defective. And you start seeing patterns, conditioning, and learned responses that you're having. And that reframe is not putting it on yourself. It's not self blame, it's self understanding. And understanding is the foundation of compassion and awareness. This is why self compassion actually works. Self compassion isn't positive thinking, it's perspective. You can't be kind to yourself while fully identifying with the critical inner voice. But when you can see that voice as simply a process, not a truth, actual awareness becomes possible. You stop arguing with yourself and start responding to yourself instead. This is also why silence matters. Quiet matters. Metacognition grows in space. And if your life is constant noise, constant distraction, constant input, you never hear the difference between a thought and just being the one who hears it. Silence creates contrast. Even small moments like walking without your phone, sitting in silence, or noticing your breath even once a day. Those aren't productivity tools. They're awareness training. You're becoming more aware of yourself. And you don't need to master this. You don't need to watch your thoughts all day, every day. You don't need to be calm. You don't need to be mindful all the time. Because metacognition isn't perfection. Metacognition is a relationship. And like any relationship, it deepens slowly. So here's the truth. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who notices them. And every time you notice, even briefly, you reclaim a little bit of choice, not control, choice. And that's where real progress begins, real awareness begins. If you understood parts of this video or even learned something from it, it means your awareness is already online. It's already activated. And once that happens, things rarely go backwards. They just unfold quietly, slowly, in ways you might not notice at first. And that's okay, because noticing, even once, changes everything. My name is John. You're welcome to be here, and you're more than welcome to stay here.